7 seconds. That's how long my grandson stood in the doorway before he said anything. 7 seconds of just looking at me, and in those 7 seconds, something in my chest went cold. I'd driven 3 hours to surprise him for his birthday. 40 miles outside of Louisville, my son Adrian's house sits on a quiet street with a big oak tree in the front yard that I helped him plant 6 years ago. I remember the day. We used a spade too small for the job, and we laughed about it. The tree's taller than the porch now. I knocked. I had a wrapped gift under my arm. One of those remote-controlled cars that I'd driven 40 minutes out of my way to buy, because my daughter-in-law Renee had mentioned in passing that he'd been asking for one. 8-year-olds are easy to shop for when you pay attention. I pay attention. The door opened and there he was. My grandson Noah. He looked at me the way a kid looks at something they're not sure is real. Slow blink, mouth a little open. And then, instead of running at me the way he always does, arms out, full speed, the kind of hug that nearly knocks a 63-year-old man off his feet, he just stood there. "Hey bud," I said. "Happy birthday." He blinked again. Grandpa, not a yell, not a squeal. Just my name. Flat and quiet, like he was reporting a fact. I crouched down. "You feeling okay?" He looked over his shoulder, back into the house, then back at me. And then he stepped outside, pulled the door halfway shut behind him, and leaned close to my ear. "Grandpa," he whispered, "can you check what's in my water bottle? The one Mom keeps filling up for me. It makes me feel weird." I kept my face still. I'd been a foreman for 27 years. You learn to keep your face still. "What kind of weird?" I said, quiet, same volume as him. "Sleepy," he said, "really, really sleepy. Even in the morning." I stood up. I picked up the gift. I smiled at him like everything was fine. Inside, I was anything but. Renee met me in the hallway. Big smile, hair done, light dress. She looked put together the way people look when they're performing something. I've known her for 11 years. I know the difference between her real smile and her company smile. That was her company smile. "Frank," she said. "She calls me Frank, always has. We weren't expecting you." "Want to surprise the birthday boy," I said. I held up the gift. "Hope that's okay, of course." She hugged me, quick and tight, one of those hugs that has no warmth in it. "Adrian's at work. He'll be back around 6. "You want something to drink? Just water," I said. "From the tap is fine." She laughed like I'd said something funny. I hadn't said anything funny. I sat at the kitchen table and watched Noah sit on the couch with that remote control car still wrapped in paper, not opening it. He was picking at the edge of the tape, slow and methodical, not excited, not anything. That boy had sprinted down a hotel hallway in his socks last Christmas because he thought he heard reindeer on the roof. I put a recording on my phone. His mother found it online and texted it to me before we got there. He believed it completely, fully, with every cell in his 8-year-old body. This was not that boy. This was a child moving through water. There was a blue plastic water bottle on the coffee table in front of him. Louisville Cardinals logo on the side, scuffed from use. He reached for it without thinking, the kind of reach you do on autopilot, and took a long pull. I watched. Renee was in the kitchen behind me. I could hear her moving around, cabinet doors, the refrigerator. I got up and walked to the couch. I sat next to Noah. "Hey," I said softly, "can I see that?" He handed me the water bottle without hesitation. 8-year-olds don't question grandfathers. I turned it over in my hands, twisted off the cap. "Smell test. And I want to be clear, I'm not a doctor. I have no medical training. I spent my career managing crew schedules and equipment logs. But I know what water smells like. This wasn't just water. There was something faint underneath it. Sweet in a way that wasn't right." I put the cap back on. "Can I hold on to this for a little while?" I asked him. He shrugged. "Sure." I set it next to me and picked up the wrapped gift. "You want to open this or what?" That got a smile, small but real. The first real thing I'd seen on his face since I arrived. I held it together through dinner. That was the hardest part. Renee made spaghetti. Noah's favorite, she said, though he barely touched it. Adrian got home at 6:15, and seeing my son walk through that door, pulling off his work jacket, kissing Noah on the top of his head, laughing at something Noah said, that nearly broke me right there. Because Adrian didn't see it. He didn't see what I was seeing. Or maybe he did and had gotten used to it, which would have been worse. After dinner, Noah fell asleep on the couch at 7:30. Adrian carried him to bed. When he came back, he said, "He's been doing that lately. Crashing early. Must be a growth spurt." I nodded. A growth spurt. I excused myself to use the bathroom, and I stood over the sink with the water bottle in my hands for a long moment. Then I opened my overnight bag and put it in a Ziploc freezer bag. I'd brought them for snacks on the drive, the small ones. I sealed it up and put it at the bottom of the bag. Then I went back out and sat with my son and talked about his job and his truck that needed new brakes in the Cardinals season, and I did not say a single word about what I was thinking. I've never been so tired in my life. I left the next morning early enough that Renee was still asleep. Adrian walked me to my truck. "You okay?" he said. He knows me well. "Little tired," I said. "Long drive yesterday." I hugged him, held it an extra second. "Hey, how long has Noah been that sluggish?" Adrian looked at the ground. "Few weeks, maybe. Renee says he's not sleeping well at night, so he's wiped out during the day." "Has he seen his doctor?" "Renee took him a couple weeks ago. Said everything was fine. Said everything was fine." I nodded. "Good, that's good." I got in the truck. "Call me when you get a chance, would you?" "This week." "Sure, Dad." I drove 2 hours before I stopped at a Walgreens in Elizabethtown. I walked to the pharmacy counter and I asked the pharmacist, young woman, patient, didn't make me feel stupid, if there was any way to test for common over-the-counter medications in a liquid. She told me about a toxicology lab in Nashville that processed samples from the public. She wrote the name down on a sticky note. I drove to Nashville. The lab was called Clearview Analytical. Strip mall off I-65, between a nail salon and a tax preparation office. A man about my age at the front desk took my sample in its sealed bag, logged it, gave me a case number, and told me results would be ready in 5 to 7 business days and they'd email me. 5 to 7 business days felt like a sentence. I drove home to Knoxville. I sat in my house and I did not call my son. I wanted to. Every hour, I wanted to. But I also knew that if I called him without knowing something solid, without having something in my hand that was real and documented and undeniable, I might blow the whole thing apart before I had enough to hold it together. I'd watched a man lose a custody case once, years ago, neighbor of mine. He called the wrong person at the wrong moment, and the other side had time to prepare. He lost. I was not going to let that happen. So I waited. I drove back down to Louisville on the 4th day. I told Renee I was passing through and wanted to take Noah out for ice cream. She said yes, quick yes, easy yes, which told me she wasn't worried about it. Confident people aren't worried. I picked Noah up at 11. We went to a place called Comfy Cow on Frankfurt Avenue. He got birthday cake flavor. I got black raspberry. We sat at a small table by the window. "How are you sleeping?" I asked him. He thought about it. "Not great. I wake up and I don't remember falling asleep. Does that happen a lot?" "Mostly on days when I drink the special water." I kept my spoon in my cup. "Special water?" "Mom said it's vitamin water. For my immune system." He licked his spoon. "It tastes kind of sweet. I don't really like it, but she says I have to drink it." There it was. "Okay," I said. "You don't have to worry about that, bud. That's Grandpa's job." He looked up at me. And there was something in his eyes. Relief isn't exactly the right word, but it was close. Like he'd been carrying a rock in his pocket for weeks and someone had finally said they'd hold it for a while. I dropped him home. I hugged him in the driveway for longer than usual. He hugged me back just as long. The email came on a Wednesday. 7 in the morning, I was on my second cup of coffee. The subject line said, "Clearview Analytical. Case 4471, results available." I sat down before I opened it. Diphenhydramine, that's what they found. Elevated concentration, well above what you'd find in, say, an adult taking a standard dose of NyQuil. More than 3 times the recommended children's dose for his weight. Diphenhydramine is the active ingredient in Benadryl. It's also the active ingredient in Zizaquil. It's used as a sleep aid. It's available at any gas station in America. No prescription required. Someone had been giving my 8-year-old grandson enough antihistamine to sedate an adult. I sat at my kitchen table for 45 minutes without moving. Then I made 3 phone calls. The first was to a family law attorney in Louisville named Dawson Carroll. I'd gotten his name from a colleague of mine who'd been through a divorce a few years back and said he was thorough and didn't rattle easy. I told him I had a toxicology result showing my grandson had been given sedating medication without medical authorization, and I needed to know exactly what steps to take and in what order. He told me to come in that afternoon. The second call was to my son. I didn't tell him everything. I told him I was coming down, that it was important, and that I needed him to meet me at Dawson's office after work. He heard something in my voice. He said, "Dad, is it Noah?" "He's safe," I said. "He's safe right now. Just meet me." The third call was to my daughter, Noah's aunt, my younger kid, Pamela, who lives 20 minutes from my son. I asked her if she could be available to have Noah at her place that evening. No questions asked until I explained. She said, "Done." Dawson Carroll had an office on South 5th Street downtown. Wood paneling, framed degrees, a desk that looked like it had survived 3 administrations. He was 60-something, reading glasses on a chain around his neck, the kind of man who doesn't react to things, he just processes them. He read the toxicology report twice, then he put it down. How old is the child? 8, turned 8 2 weeks ago. Any medical authorization for this medication? None. His pediatrician has no record of it, and the mother is your son's wife, correct? Married 4 years. She's Noah's biological mother. He folded his hands. Do you know why she would do this? I'd thought about this. I'd thought about almost nothing else for a week and a half. I didn't want to make accusations I couldn't back up, but I also wasn't stupid, and I'd been paying attention. I think she's involved with someone, I said. I have no proof of that. But about 6 months ago, Adrian mentioned she'd been going out more in the evenings, that she was taking calls in the other room. He mentioned it the way people mention things they're trying not to think about. I didn't push. I should have pushed it. Dawson nodded slowly. I'm going to recommend that before your son confronts her, we file an emergency motion for temporary custody through your son, citing the toxicology report. We're going to want to move fast enough that she doesn't have time to shift the story. She took him to a doctor, I said. About 3 weeks ago. According to my son, the doctor said he was fine. We'll need those records. If the doctor didn't test for sedatives, they may not have been looking. Can she get ahead of this? Legally? He took his glasses off and set them on the desk. Mr. Kowalski. That's my name, I should have said it before. Frank Kowalski, retired foreman, 63 years old, grandfather. The moment we attach a chain of custody toxicology report to a family court filing, the burden shifts. She's not dealing with an accusation. She's dealing with a result. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. Adrian didn't say anything for a long time after I showed him the report. We were in Dawson's conference room, the 3 of us and the document and the silence. I watched my son read it. I watched him read it again. I watched the color leave his face in stages, the way a tide goes out. She said he was growing, he finally said. The words came out small. I know, she said it was normal, being tired. She said I know. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. How long? I can't say for certain. But Noah told me the vitamin water started about 2 months ago. 2 months. My grandson had been sedated for 2 months, while his mother told his father it was a growth spurt, while the family went on with its regular life, while I drove down for visits and noticed he was quieter, but told myself kids have phases. I told myself kids have phases. That's the part I'll carry. Adrian stood up. He moved toward the door. I thought he was going to walk out, maybe drive home, maybe do something we'd all regret. Where's Noah right now? He asked. Pamela's, I said. He's fine. She's got him. He nodded. He stood with his hand on the doorframe for a moment. Then he came back and sat down. Tell me what to do, he said. We filed the emergency motion the next morning. Dawson moved fast. By noon, temporary order of protection was signed. Child Protective Services was notified by the court. We didn't have to call them separately. The filing triggered it automatically. Renee was served at the house at 2:15 in the afternoon. I wasn't there. Adrian was. He told me later that when she opened the envelope, she went quiet in a way that told him everything. Not surprised quiet, caught quiet. There's a difference. He said she tried to start talking and he just held up his hand and walked to Noah's room and started packing a bag. She didn't stop him. CPS investigated over the following 3 weeks. They pulled pharmacy records, and this is the part that still sits heavy with me when I think about it. She had been purchasing diphenhydramine in the liquid children's form, the grape-flavored one, at different CVS and Walgreens locations across 2 counties. Not the same store each time. Rotating. 8 purchases across 11 weeks, always cash. That's not someone who stumbled into something. That's someone who planned it. Adrian filed for divorce on the 22nd day. He had grounds the size of a billboard. The CPS finding came back substantiated. Child neglect with physical harm. Renee's attorney, she hired one quickly once she understood what she was looking at, tried to argue that the dosing was accidental, that she'd misread a label. The pharmacy receipts were purchased in adult-strength liquid form. The investigators didn't buy it, and neither did the judge. She was charged with child endangerment. First degree, under Kentucky statute. It's a Class D felony. That means up to 5 years. I found out about the charge on a Thursday evening. Adrian called me, voice flat and exhausted, and told me. I said, okay. And then I sat in my truck in my own driveway for 20 minutes, because I didn't trust myself to walk into the house without losing it somewhere my grandkids couldn't hear. I want to talk about something that happens when a thing like this comes to light, because nobody warned me about it. You expect to feel relief, and you do feel that eventually. But what comes first is a kind of grief that doesn't have a clean name. It's the grief of the time that passed. It's 8 weeks of Saturday mornings where Noah woke up foggy and nobody knew why. It's the birthday party where he blew out candles and didn't seem excited about anything. It's the way he stood in that doorway and looked at me like he wasn't sure what was real. That grief doesn't leave quickly. Maybe it doesn't leave at all. You just learn to set it down for longer stretches. My son is in the process of divorcing. He's got temporary full custody. Noah is in therapy with a woman in the Highlands neighborhood of Louisville. Good therapist, someone who specializes in children who've experienced what they call medical abuse. Noah calls her Miss Terry. He likes her. He showed me a drawing he did in one of their sessions. A house with a big tree out front. I recognize that tree. It's the one we planted. He drew it taller than I remembered it. 6 months after that Wednesday morning email, I drove back to Louisville on a regular Saturday with no emergency and no agenda. I got there at 10. Noah met me at the door, full speed, arms out. That hug nearly knocked me down. I let it. We drove to Coffee Cow again. Same table, same window. He got birthday cake flavor again, even though his birthday was 6 months past. I got black raspberry. Grandpa, he said, somewhere in the middle of his second scoop. Are you going to visit more now? Yeah, I said, I am. He nodded, satisfied. The way kids are satisfied by simple answers to important questions. Then he went back to his ice cream. I watched the street outside. A woman was walking a golden retriever. A couple of college kids crossed at the light. Normal Saturday in Louisville. The kind of morning that doesn't ask anything of you. 7 seconds. In that doorway, that's what started all of it. I've thought a lot about what would have happened if I hadn't crouched down and asked him if he was okay. If I'd handed him the gift and gone inside and assumed it was just a phase. If I hadn't paid attention. Pay attention to the little ones. They will tell you everything, every single time. You just have to be close enough to hear it and quiet enough not to miss it. Noah finished his ice cream. He pushed the empty cup across the table toward me and said, "Can we get another one?" "One more," I said. He grinned. That wide, full, nothing held back grin that I'd been waiting months to see again. "Thanks, Grandpa." "Yeah. Anytime, bud. Anytime."